Photography is often about freezing a moment in time, but motion blur does the opposite. It's a way of capturing the fourth dimension itself, time. So I took this idea to the streets, capturing the collective energy of the city using motion blur to shape time in a single image, focusing not just on what I see, but on what I feel. Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Recently I started working on personal street and documentary projects to build a solid body of work and grow as a photographer. The goal is to do something new, and today's video is a first experiment. Oh, and stick around until the end because I have something cool for you. There's one important thing I've learned doing street photography. Everything we capture is just a way to tell the story that is happening in front of us. There are plenty of ways to do that, and for this video, motion blur plays a huge role. Many of you might have experimented with motion blur already, but here I wanna do something different, using it to capture time. It's not just about freezing a moment, but letting movement tell a deeper story, where time flows within the frame. So in this video, I'll focus on capturing movement as an expression of the city's energy. Now, there are two ways to add blur: shaking the camera randomly or following your subject motion. For this project, I chose the second one because it's the best way to document movement. Also, this experiment is a way of taking distance from my obsession of sharpness and perfection. It's about prioritizing atmosphere over precision and focusing on the movement rather than a specific scene. Just to give a bit of context, I use my Fujifilm X100V. It's light and it has an internal ND filter. I kept my shutter speed between 1/30th of a second and 1/3 of a second. Fixed ISO at 800 just because I knew I was going back and forth from shady areas, and adjusted the aperture to balance the exposure. I also added a mist filter to create a bloom effect, enhancing the abstractness of motion blur. Alright, let's dive into this. I started the day taking photos at the central station in Milan, from the subway to the common area of the station. The goal here is to capture the most pure form of time, focusing on people taking trains. Moving on the way to the central station, I stopped along a small staircase, where usually people run up to catch a train in time. Here I got this photo, which somehow gives me the idea of the time lost using our phones. This one contrasts a bit with a second candid image of this old couple holding hands together. Later on, I saw this gliding vehicle. Even though it's going slow, following the movement gives a bit of motion. Here I think it would have been more powerful to do the opposite, standing still and letting the movement define the time. In the main hall inside the station, I started playing a bit more with the idea of time passing by, and I think here I took a strong image of time, defined by the steps a person takes. While shooting inside the station, I realized there are two ways of capturing the movement and time that I really enjoy, or at least that represent better the idea of what I have in mind: steps and phones. Taking photos of people walking, of course, is quite easy, but I tried several times to nail a shot that reflects the time spent inside our phones, and I think this one here is the closest one I got. After some time spent inside this station, I decided to move out, heading to the city center. Along the way, I had a bit of fun taking photos of cars passing by. Despite being a sort of cliché, I think it still reflects how time moves in a city. After lunch, I took some images without actually recording videos. This picture here is kind of wrong somehow. I like the colors, and because of that my attention goes to the orange jacket, but the composition looks odd to me even if I reframe it. So I tried to edit in black and white, reframing it, but still there is something that doesn't work. Here I tried to play a bit with blur and reflections, but the result doesn't work. Now, in this particular moment, my attention went to this guy here and his dog. Usually I don't like to take photos of people in need, but here I got a picture that reflects the idea of this man completely ignored by people passing by. I would say he's like a ghost to them, but I like how they look like ghosts to him. Piazza del Duomo is a really crowded area, but taking pictures of people here felt like a cheat code. So instead, I drew my attention to the pigeons, a sort of characteristic of this plaza. I like the second one here because I think it merged perfectly the motion blur with the abstract fine art of street photography. My last subjects were trams. I took a few pictures here that I really like. This was definitely an interesting experiment. It was my first time shooting an entire project using motion blur, and doing it in an uncontrolled environment was a challenge. There were moments when I really wanted to capture something specific, but even when I had the chance, I couldn't quite get it. But I guess that's part of the process and part of growing as a photographer as well. Honestly, I didn't get a ton of shots I'm happy with, but considering I only shoot for a few hours in a single day, that's to be expected. Still, this whole experience has inspired me to shoot more like this, less precise but full of atmosphere photos, shaped by the passage of time. And that's what this was all about, using motion blur not just to show movement, but to capture time itself. To take a moment and stretch it, letting the city's energy shape the image in a unique way that a sharp, frozen frame never could. Having a clear idea in mind, like focusing on the natural flow of life, made the whole experience way more fun to shoot than just shaking the camera to get the blur. Anyway, if you have made it this far, I want to thank you in a more meaningful way than just saying thanks. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm working on a series of small photography projects, and this one is the first one. Each of these will turn into digital designs, and this first one is all about motion blur. So, since I appreciate your support, I want to give you this first design for free. Inside you will find some of my best shots from this video, along with personal thoughts. You can download it for free at the link in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe even feel inspired to try something new. Let me know what you think of the design. Feel free to send me your feedbacks, because I plan to do more and more, and any feedback will be gold for me. Alright, see you in the next one. Love you all. Peace.